We're going to go to item 33, and Commissioners, just so you know, we have 30 people wishing to speak on this. I'm going to go to do a 2-minute on this. I'm going to open up the public hearing. This is an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners relating to the prohibition of conversion therapy on minors. And we're going to, if you hear someone saying exactly what someone said right before you, feel free to wave your hand and say, I wave, and I support that. Okay? So here we go. Our first speaker is Bob Swindell, followed by Paul Anagnostos and Christian Regalado. Oh, he did. Okay, Bob. So Paul Anagnostos.
Good morning. I'm Paul Anagnostos. I'm here as a volunteer and a member of the Human Rights Campaign, which is the largest gay and lesbian organization in the United States, advocating for political and human rights for gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgenders. These kind of laws are very important. On a personal note, I moved here 2.5 years ago with my husband when he got a job offer here. And I was very reluctant to move to Florida from Boston because of the legal protections that Florida does not provide. But a big factor in our deciding to actually move here was the laws and protections that Broward County has enacted for its gay and lesbian citizens. Efforts to change one's sexual orientation or gender identity have no scientific merit, have been rejected by every medical, mental health, and child welfare organization in the United States, and are doing irreparable harm to our youth. I and the members of the Human Rights Campaign urge you to vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christian Regalado.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I am Dr. Carolyn Regalado, a scientist, educator, and Broward County resident of over 20 years. As you may surmise from my name and appearance, I am also a transgender woman in the early stages of hormone replacement therapy. I am a mother of one with a second child on the way. The opponents of this proposed ban on conversion therapy state that such a ban is an abridgment of their religious liberty as protected by the Establishment Clause of our Constitution. Make no mistake, this is an abridgment, but it wouldn't be the first. Modern American polity is rife with compromises intended to address and moderate the blind absolutism of our founding document. These compromises are born out of a necessity to define the extent of one's rights so that their exercise doesn't infringe on the rights of others. The Establishment Clause is no stranger to such compromises, especially with regards to the safety and welfare of minors. In the past decade alone, jurisdictions across America have charged multiple parents with the murder of their infants for their willful denial of life-saving medical treatment. The parents' assertions of religious liberty did not protect their deliberate choice to rely on faith healing as an alternative to established medicine. The consequences of conversion therapy may not be as dire or readily apparent as refusing to administer life-saving medicine to a sick child, but forcing a minor to undergo such therapy nevertheless constitutes the willful denial of that minor's well-being for the satisfaction of the parent or guardian's religious beliefs. With those facts considered, I maintain that it is not the responsibility of advocates for this ban to attest to its constitutionality, but it is the responsibility of its opponents to prove, in spite of multiple professional organizations' assertions to the contrary, that conversion therapy causes no harm. Those associations are the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Counseling Association, and the American Psychiatric Association. Until it can be proven otherwise, it is evident that forcing a minor to undergo conversion therapy constitutes child endangerment, and I implore that you vote to prohibit its practice here in this county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ellen Filer and then Bobby Eddington.
It's almost good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ellen Filer. I serve on the Human Rights Board of Broward County, but I am speaking on behalf of myself. I am also a Master Certified Health Educator nationally, and I just want to say I am not going to repeat all of that. I will tell you that as a youth growing up, I myself went through this kind of conversion therapy. It was not pleasant. It also did not work. I was miserable. I felt as though I was being told that what my natural inclinations to do, which was to love somebody, was ridiculous, nasty, and that it was something that was horrible, and that I was going to go to hell for it. This wanted to make me kill myself because it made me feel horrible. I did not do that. I continued on my path as a human being, and I believe a very valuable human being. Thank goodness I found role models in my community that showed me that who I was a valuable human being, and I believe I can contribute a great deal to Broward County and wherever I am. I urge you, please, to consider our most vulnerable youth when making this decision. We are talking about so many issues in our society. We need to bring Broward forward, just like so many of our sister cities around the United States. We need to show that we are as progressive with our youth as we are with building our roads and our housing. Thank you for listening. Please think of the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Filer. Next speaker is Bobby Jack Eddington.
Hello, Mayor, and hello, staff.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for seeing me today. My name is Bobby Eddington, and I serve on the Broward County Executive Republican Committee representing Precinct 2, which is Wilton Manors. As a Republican, we would think that we would be all for this conversion therapy, but it's simply not true. We have more in common with our neighbors and with each other than division. And I want to thank Chip LaMarca for coming on board. I hope you can support by voting for this band. You know, I grew up in Texas, rode a horse, played on the football team. I went on to college, and I worked at Kennedy Space Center. I worked at Kennedy at NASA for the solid rocket booster division. And I know many gay crew members of the shuttle, and we all have a secret and sacred bond of, we are pretty much all the same. We don't have to wear a little badge saying I'm gay. We don't have to wear a badge saying I'm black or I'm white or have a rainbow. We're people. And this conversion therapy of making me feel like I'm bad and I grew up somehow as a wrong person by being gay is just silly. And again, we have more things in common with each other than we do separate. And I hope you all vote for this band and let people grow up to who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddington. Next is Paul Smith, and followed by Ken Evans.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Paul Smith, and I come as a private citizen, but also as a mental health clinician that has been in the profession for over 25 years. I am currently a clinical supervisor at SunServe. It is a mental health clinic in Wilton Manors, and also a member of the board at the Pride Center. And I simply want to appeal to your better judgment and to your good sense. This idea of conversion therapy has been created, I guess, to serve the needs, certainly not of our gay and lesbian LGBT youth. in my 25 years of practice, I have sat with some of these people who I have been severely damaged by this particular therapy attempts. This, what do they use? It's, let's pray away the gay. Let's movies, aversion kinds of techniques that create what? Suffering and pain. In order that when the idea or the urge comes up, you get zapped. This stuff is archaic. It's no longer something that should be used. The idea of being LGBT is no longer considered a psychopathology. What we could better do for our youth is to create environments of community and familial acceptance and support. I grew up in a black community, and I still have strong connections. And what I find is that the church and all of the religious impositions regarding homosexuality causes not so much conversion therapy. They're not looking for that, but what they're struggling with is finding ways, I think, to accept their LGBT youth.
Thank you,
without
Mr. Smith.
Judgment.
Thank you very
without
much.
derision.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ken Evans, followed by Bernie Diaz. Hello, Ken.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you?
Morning. Good. How you doing?
Good to see you. As you know, I wear many hats in this community, but the one that's near and dear to me is running summer camps for children. And since 1910, the American Camp Association is a large organization of over 4,000 campers throughout the United States, camps that they represent. And I'm on the board for that, and I'm also an accreditor for the American Camp Association. Conversion therapy is something that we're certainly totally against. And as a founder of a summer camp here in Broward County, and also the founder of Camp Nova at the University School at Nova, this is my business for since 1980. And one thing I've learned about children is just loving them and respecting them and working with them, and letting them be who they are is more important than anything we can do. And they will grow up to be fine citizens. Myself, as a gay man, it was very difficult growing up hiding that, and being part of the association for the Camping Association, they taught me to be myself. And that's what I've been teaching children for over 40-some years. So I ask you to look at this ordinance and please put that in for Broward County. This is what we should be doing. Everybody up here really knows me and knows what I'm about and knows that my heart's in the right place on this issue. And I hope that you support us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. Next speaker is Bernie Diaz.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Bernie Diaz. I'm an ordained minister and pastor of Christ Community Church in Pembroke Pines and an 18-year resident citizen of Broward County with 3 young adult children, which is all relevant to our discussion. Conversion, let me define terms quickly. Conversion is not therapy, nor is it a dirty word for millions of God-fearing, Bible-believing Christians, for instance. Conversion is simply a life-transforming event that one voluntarily, the key word voluntarily, whose parents voluntarily wish to undertake by faith. I know because I do this for a living week in, week out. Make no mistake, what this issue is about civil rights, is about religious freedom. This ordinance would be another indication of an anti-faith bias, which it seemingly Judeo-Christianity may be the last particular community which may be discriminated against for its moral values. This is something that has been played out, as you know, in the same-sex marriage debate with wedding photographers, bakers, florists, county clerk employees, healthcare providers like Little Sisters of the Poor who prevailed in the Supreme Court, fast food restaurants, Chick-fil-A, retailers, etc. Let me just read briefly a moment. Supreme Court Justice Kennedy, his majority opinion on this decision legalizing same-sex marriage. The First Amendment ensures that religious organizations and persons are given proper protection as they seek to teach the principles that are so fulfilling and so central to their lives and faiths. Teach, counsel. That is a constitutionally protected right on both the state and federal levels, as it has prevailed by precedents. So my hope is that licensed counselors will continue with the right they have long held to have the right to offer this service to those who seek voluntarily this help. And that in the ordinance I am opposed to it, and that you will consider the rights, the equal civil rights of people of faith.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Next is Reverend Stevenson, followed by Jack Shifrell.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Jerry Stevenson. I'm with Grace Church and Atlantic Institute Recovery Center. I come out of the ex-gay movement and was a part of the conversion and reparative therapy. It doesn't work. I also worked with an organization called Truth Wins Out for 25 years on their board. And we were able to bring down the largest ex-gay group called Exodus International. And of course, Alan Chambers said on national TV that conversion and reparative therapy is very dangerous. And of course, we also had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Robert Spencer, who wrote a paper on reparative therapy. And with the American Psychiatric Association and ourselves, we were able to get him to recant on that paper, and that reparative and conversion therapy is very, very dangerous. I have spent 25 years working with children on all levels in regards to this, faith and non-faith. I'd like to share a story of one of my stories that I've been able to have the privilege. The book and the movie, Pray for Bobby. I met with the mother, where the son went on an overpass, and he jumped off that overpass in front of a semi, and he ended his life. And that's very sad. So I hope that you'll see how dangerous conversion and reparative therapy is, and that it causes a lot of danger. And I'm a survivor of it. I'm here today, and I thank God that I'm one of those who's able to tell my story. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Reverend. Next speaker is Jack Shifrell, and followed by Jessica Gottelsman.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners.
Good morning.
And Bertha, I owe you a special thank you on another subject altogether. The signs are up. Pardon my diversion to that. I'm a 71-year-old straight male, father of 3, grandfather of 7, and I want to congratulate this commission for doing the right thing. Former United States Surgeon General David Souther in 2001 issued a report stating that there is no reliable or valid scientific evidence that sexual orientation can be changed by any kind of therapy. The American Psychiatric Association does not consider homosexuality to be a mental disease or disorder, and strongly opposes any attempt at conversion therapy. And the American Psychiatric Association also has found that attempts to change sexual orientation may cause or exacerbate distress and poor mental health, including depression and suicidal thoughts. I think that clearly shows that you're doing the right thing, that interfering with the most personal aspect of an individual's life is a very serious mistake, and I personally resent the comments that that this is done voluntarily and with permission of the young people involved. If they're of the age of being a minor and being that young, they're not able to make those voluntary decisions. That's just a silly statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Jessica Gottesman, followed by Brian Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Gottsleben. I am a born and raised resident of Broward County, a product of the Broward County school system, a proud follower and disciple of Jesus, and today I am here to speak on behalf of the 50 Bills, 50 States campaign from the Trevor Project. 50 Bills, 50 States has a goal to submit legislation to protect LGBTQ youth from conversion therapy in every state. Now, my major priority of the Trevor Project, the nation's leading crisis intervention and suicide prevention program for LGBTQ youth. Thus far, Florida has filed legislation, but is also home to the most local jurisdictions to take a stand. So far, we have 8 states taking action, 16 Florida municipalities, and 41 states who have yet to enact protections for our LGBTQ youth. That said, and if you have heard from the survivors here as well as the survivors within our network, I like to say that they're resilient like a palm tree. Not only is conversion therapy dangerous, I shouldn't have to go and tell you the disproportionate impact that it has on LGBTQ youth, as well as the disproportionate impact and statistics we've already seen within human trafficking, homelessness, suicide planning, attempts, and some completed. Not only is it negligent and untruthful to tell anyone that their identity can be changed, more importantly, it is unjustifiable and cruel to promote the idea that it needs to be or that it should be. At 50 Bills, 50 States, we say you can't change what we never chose. Conversion therapy is often disguised with terms like reparative therapy. While our message to youth, you are not broken. You are worthy, you are valid, you are more than enough, and no part of your identity is going to make you less. I want to thank Mayor Furr, Vice Mayor Bogan, the entire commission who has been sponsoring to bring this ordinance forward, and joining us in saying, we hear you, we are here for you, and you are not alone. Coming from Broward County, which is a place that has every identity under the sun, I want to thank the commission for taking the vital and long overdue step to not only protect LGBTQ youth in the community, but for proving that Broward County is not just a place to survive, but a place to thrive, not just a place to live, but a place to grow up and a place to call home. For the members of the LGBTQ community who are no longer alive, I implore you to honor them with action.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Wilson, followed by Dr. Robert Otto.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm a former chair of the Diversity Committee of the School Board of Broward County, but today I speak on behalf of SunServe, a nonprofit serving the LGBTI community in Wilton Manors. The anonymous writer of the following letter asked that I read it on his behalf. He's a therapist working in Broward County. He signed an agreement to never reveal the practices of the People Can Change Conversion Therapy organization. His words, "Who we love is an orientation that goes beyond sexual expression. Conversion therapy's lie damaged my ability to love for over 30 years. It has taken time and years to recognize and be proud of who I am and my husband. I implore you to protect our vulnerable youth and ban conversion therapy from capitalizing on self-hate. My experience as being a gay man in an ex-gay therapy conversion program has been traumatic. I grew up in the Bible Belt in a non-gay affirming church. I believed that if I prayed hard enough that God would give me a wife and that I would be able to abandon my sexual attraction to men. Conversion therapy begins with the false hope of conversion through the lingo used by ex-gay therapists in programs. There was so much profound shame we couldn't even say the word gay out loud. The unwritten idea is that if you accept that you are gay, then you are 1, engaging in promiscuous addictive sex, 2, are effeminate and are not living up to being the ex-gay stereotype of what it means to be a man, 3, are going to lose friends, family, and loved ones who do not accept your orientation. Ex-gay programs can be live-in programs with groups or individual therapy. The false premise is that if you are secure in your identity as a man among men, then you will no longer have intense sexual attractions. They believe that poor male modeling by fathers are to blame for male same-sex attraction. The People Can Change program defined an attraction as a charge. Once it was identified that another man had a charge with me, and a ritualized procedure took place. We formed a circle of about 8 men consisting of the leaders, lay staff, and participants. The man with the charge for me stated specifics about what he was attracted to about me. He liked my masculine voice, my confidence. The attraction was then systematically desexualized and dismantled by the leaders, essentially stating how I had admirable male traits that they could learn to emulate. To address the incredible thirst for male affection, the People Can Change program practiced therapeutic holding, where we were broken down into groups of 3. My group leader instructed and demonstrated ways to hold another man. We then proceeded to hold one another for a timed amount of time, and we were instructed to never engage in holding without a minimum of 3 participants. In our last meeting retreat, a participant stated he would be getting married.
Thank you, Brian.
This was evidence of cure for being gay. Faith is not an excuse for abuse.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Otto, followed by Shannon Otto.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Robert Otto. I have seen clients in Broward County, and I have worked in Broward County on this issue. I have clients who are both gay minors who do not want to change, and I have clients who have homosexual feelings as minors, and they do want to change. I have compassion toward all my clients. It's not my job to force them to change. But when I have a client who comes with discomfort, it's my duty as a professional to help that client achieve the results that he or she is interested in. So when I have a client who says that I want to change these sexual feelings, isn't that consistent with gender fluidity? We're told this morning that gender can't change. Well, that's inconsistent with what I've seen in my practice. Now, I don't shock people. I don't hook them up to a little buzzer and connect them to a wall socket and flip a switch if they have a wrong thought. I listen to them, and I help them understand how those thoughts happen and where they come from. And it's a great deal of compassion that goes on. I can't force that on anybody. But you should not force on my minor clients who want to change by removing their opportunity to come and talk with me about unwanted sexual or romantic feelings. And this ordinance does that. Now, you've been put on notice by Liberty Counsel. You know they're the one who filed a lawsuit against the city of Tampa. And you know they're pursuing this issue around the country in federal court. Your fiscal impact statement said that this would have little to no fiscal impact on this county. How much does it cost to defend a federal lawsuit? And if you factor that in. Now, I have 13 years of professional education. I have a doctoral degree. And you're going to have the county code enforcement officer come and fine me for something that he determines or she determines is a fine. What education does that person have compared to mine to know whether I have violated something that's sacred between me and my client? These issues are defined by the state licensure laws, not the county. The state has preempted you by acting on this behalf. And so you have no jurisdiction to pursue this. It's a violation of the First Amendment rights of my clients, of their parents, and of me as a counselor.
Thank you,
Those
Dr.
are protected by the state and the federal constitutions as well as state laws. Please vote no. Thank you very much.
Shannon Otto, followed by Reverend Bradley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Some people are born male and are sexually abused by the same sex. Just as many people are born female and sexually abused by the opposite sex, and vice versa. Both groups are violated and may have unwanted thoughts and feelings that arise in their mind in which they would like counseling and help sorting through, processing, and eliminating. Approximately a third of our population has been sexually abused, and I being one of them. The way this ordinance is worded, the LGBT community is exempting members of their own community, as well as others, from receiving counseling to deal with and help overcome, if they're interested in overcoming unwanted thoughts, so that they can enjoy their life. Today, this ordinance is restricting our freedom of speech. It restricts parental rights. It violates the Florida Patient Bill of Rights. Further, it restricts minors and children's voices. And this has the potential to increase human trafficking. And I think you should take that into consideration. Any inappropriate speech or action is the state's duty and responsibility to rectify and or reprimand professionals that are licensed by the state. This is not an issue that cities nor counties should be voting on today or even considering. Medical doctors and therapists are licensed by the state, not cities and communities. You are restricting the rights of youth to question issues of intent and have their questions answered in a counseling room setting. Are they not able to question? They spend the first 17 years of their lives questioning countless ideas and issues, as did you and I. Did we not? Is it not what we want them to do? Do we want to raise a generation of non-thinkers? Do we want to be do we want them to be critical thinkers? Yes, of course we want to raise up a generation of youth that are given options of
Thank you,
how
Ms.
to
Otten.
think.
Thank you. Next is Reverend Ty Bradley, followed by Catherine Campbell.
I don't believe Ty is present.
Okay. Catherine Campbell, followed by Reverend Tripton? Not sure what that one is.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. I apologize, I'm going to read off of my phone because I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm not quite all here, but I want to make sure I say what I need to say. So my name is Dr. Catherine Campbell. I stand here today as a parent, as a licensed clinical social worker and private practitioner in this community, a community member, and as president for the Association of Social Workers for the Florida chapter. I want to first emphasize that this ordinance is focused on minors, so they do not have free will, unlike stated above before. They are often forced to deal with rejection issues, their internal rejection issues, and sometimes not only does this not improve their lives, but it is to conform to something that they do not believe in is who they are. It is proven to lead to suicidality, drug use, homelessness, and a host of other mental health issues. Secondly, this ordinance is focused on licensed practitioners. As the president of the National Association of Social Workers Florida chapter, we support the adoption of local, state, federal, national policies and legislation that bans all form of discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And ASW condemns the use of SOS, or so-called reparative therapy, by any persons identifying as a social worker or an agency that identifies providing social work services. Public dollars should not be spent on programs that support SOS. These practices are directly against our code of ethics and has been a county a violation. By having this ban as a county violation, it can assist in holding practitioners accountable on the licensing level and actually allow them to address code of ethics violations as well, and to address the issue before around the clinicians being able to help them. A good clinician understands and recognizes that shame and societal shame around LGBT issues plays a significant role in how they identify and whether or not they choose or the desire to change based on that level of shame and how shame impacts them. I also want to stress as a parent that I am a parent and recognize that a lot of parents who are seeking out these services are looking for something to help their child, and this ban helps to make sure that dangerous practices are not being used and not being guided in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. The next it's Reverend Leslie Rutland.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what the last one is, but you can help me out on that.
Good
Followed
morning,
by
and
Vice
thank you.
Mayor Justin Flippin.
Good morning, and thank you, Mayor.
Good morning.
My name is Pastor Leslie Rutland Tipton. I have
close.
been yes, there you go. I have been a resident of Broward County for 14 years. I currently serve as the senior pastor at Church of the Holy Spirit Song in Wilton Manors, the position I've held for 5 years. I'm also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and I am happily married to my wife, Sandra. We live in Fort Lauderdale, where we moved approximately a year ago to be closer to our community. Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, South Florida is a beautiful, wonderful place to live. And there are many liberties that we enjoy here in Broward County. I'm not here to talk to you today about the research, which speaks quite clearly to this issue. I'm not here today to talk to you about what you should and shouldn't do. I'm here today to advocate for the children that don't have a voice in this. I ask you to make the same decision that you made on item number 32 with our wonderful representative here to protect the babies. I'm asking you to protect the children that don't have a decision, who don't voluntarily go into therapy but are forced into places where they are not comfortable, into things that cannot change, into things that aren't made to be changed just as much as I can't change my arm into a leg. We're not here to take any religious freedoms away from anybody. And I can guarantee you that as a Christian, Bible-believing pastor that preaches Jesus Christ in her church, we are here to ask you to take reparative therapy away from therapists, mental health, licensed clinical therapists here in Broward County. We're here today to ask you to protect the children. I have many people in my congregation who have gone through so-called reparative therapy. It was neither reparative nor was it therapy. And I think that going on any further would just be redundant from things that you have already heard. I thank you so much for your consideration today, Commissioners, and I thank you for making the right decision today for our youth, our LGBTQI youth in Broward County. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Our next speaker is Vice Mayor Flippen.
Good afternoon, Mayor Furr, Vice Mayor Bogan, and Commissioners. My name is Justin Flippen, and I am the Vice Mayor of the City of Wilton Manors and also a survivor of so-called conversion or reparative therapy. As a young adult, I went through a program here in Broward County that incorrectly believed being gay was simply a choice and that counseling and therapy could reprogram me to be heterosexual. This practice brings those who go through it not the affirmation and support they should be given by licensed professionals. Instead, it subjects individuals, often kids and teenagers, with self-doubt, greater issues of personal identity and development, some leading to homelessness or even suicide. I struggled through some of those issues as a young adult. As a local policymaker, I could not imagine allowing younger minds to be subjected to this, and I suspect you feel the same. That is why, working with SAVE and Equality Florida, Wilton Manors became Broward County's first city to pass an ordinance banning conversion therapy, standing with professionals and science to adopt law to protect our children. As a matter of policy and public safety and well-being, we elected have a duty to our residents, especially those youngest among us, to ensure the highest level of care to keep them safe and licensed practitioners accountable. Parents seeking services for their children don't limit their search to a single city, but hopefully soon they will have the peace of mind to know that in Broward, our county commissioners have done all we can to exclude fraudulent services from those permitted to be used on minors. I respectfully request your support of the adoption on the ban on conversion therapy. You'll be making sure that all children, including gay and transgender kids, have a chance to grow up and be healthy adults without fear of being subjected to fraudulent medical practices. You will be sending a clear message to LGBTQ youth that in Broward you're valued, wanted, and protected. Thank you for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next, we will be followed by Tony Lima and then Vicki Schwisberg. Is Tony here? Tony? After Vicki will be Stratton Pulitzer.
I'm Tony Lima. Good morning, Commission. Good morning, Mayor and Vice Mayor.
Good morning.
I'm here representing SAVE, the longest-serving LGBT rights organization in South Florida. And we had the pleasure of working with Vice Mayor Flippen to pass the ban in Wilton Manors, as well as 6 other bans throughout South Florida, municipal bans to be exact. A lot of what I wanted to say has been said already, but I think it's important that we continue to focus this issue on our children and our teens. We need to be able to, as a county, send a strong message that we are inclusive, that we are loving, that we are protective of their authentic selves above all. And I think that's one of the most important things to remember. It's really not about the therapists. It's not about the rhetoric, the use of religious freedom as a plan to back all of this up. I think it's important that we continue to remember our children and our teens and how they should feel like they are supported in this community. So thank you. I also wanted to say that my colleague, Justin Klecha, isn't here, but there's a card for him, so I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Vicki Schwisberg, followed by Stratton Pulitzer.
Thank you, Mayor. I waive my time before the
Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate that. Next is Stratton.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Rich, for sponsoring this legislation. I really appreciated your comments earlier about Broward setting a standard in protecting our children, because we think that what you're considering today is important not just for Broward County, but to set a standard for Florida and for our country. And in fairness, I'll let you know that you haven't reset the clock, so you're just giving me extra time right now. Thank you very much.
Okay.
A lot of really eloquent things have been said. I want to underscore this is a deceptive, utterly discredited practice that targets minors and often targets them against their will. Even a minor who comes in to a counselor asking to be changed may be facing a situation at home where their parents said, if you're gay, you're no longer welcome here, and there's a way we can fix you. And so you're going to go and you're going to see this therapist and you're going to change, or you're going to be on the street. And we've heard those stories for 20 years at Equality Florida. We've seen those children wind up on the streets. And so what you're talking about here in some cases literally is a matter of life or death and survival for these kids. I also want to say there have been threats of lawsuits from the Liberty Council. That's not anything to fear. We know that 8 states and 16 municipalities in Florida have passed these bans, and they have been upheld every single time they have been challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. This is not a civil rights issue. This is about licensed clinical therapists not being allowed to lie to their patients about their ability to change or their need to change, about licensed therapists in the state of Florida scaring parents into believing that they should be subjecting their children to what every single professional association tells us is a ineffective and sometimes lethal process. I also want to just remind everyone something someone else mentioned earlier. Florida was once home to the largest conversion therapy movement, ex-gay movement in the world. Exodus International was based in Orlando. The head of Exodus International later was found to be gay. His follower, Alan Chambers, who was mentioned earlier, came out after Exodus shut its doors and apologized for all of the damage that they had done to children and young people in their history. That's probably 10 years ago.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Next is Rachel Alexander, followed by Scott. I think it's Bennett.
Hello, everyone.
Again.
Again, yes. I'm proof that this represents all faces. I didn't know that this was happening today, but it's just so happenstance that I just got engaged, and this should be the happiest time of my life. My partner is transgender, and we can't find a place to get married. Yesterday, when I should have been preparing this speech that I was giving, earlier, thank you for passing that ordinance, by the way, I was crying in my car because we found a venue. It was perfect. We called them, and they let us know that they would not marry us. Now, if I hadn't been raised in a liberal household that told me that there was nothing wrong with me, there was nothing to repair, I can't imagine the effect that that would have had on me yesterday. Instead, I am a grown woman who is strong-willed and was told throughout my life that no matter what my sexuality was, that I was accepted and nothing was wrong with me. Because of that, I'm going to get married. I'm going to find a place that will marry me and my fiance. And I'm letting whoever is watching this know, child, not child, grown up, Christian, Jewish, there's nothing to repair. There's nothing wrong with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Next we have Scott. I think it's Bennett.
Yes.
Okay. Scott, and then followed by Roe Elisiu. Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor and Vice Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I am a resident of Broward County. I've been here for 10 years. I recently retired after 35 years from a media company as an attorney. This ordinance is completely constitutional and completely within your ability to do so. So I urge you to do so. I also want to tell you, as a gay man, I went through therapy when I was growing up. It wasn't this type of reparative conversion therapy. It was the hardest thing I ever did. I can't imagine coming the other way. It was so hard to begin with. So from that fact, I also urge you to adopt this ordinance. The last thing is, Broward County is a wonderful place for the GBLT community. You guys have made it, women have made it a wonderful place. Do this. Encourage more people of all types to be here in Broward County.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to need a motion to extend
through the end of this.
Yes, we have 5 more speakers.
Through the end
and then
of the
after that, we'll
speakers.
take a break.
Yes, okay.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Correct. Yes. Well, let's get to this point. Let's get all the speakers first. All those in favor of the extension? Any opposed? Okay, we're extended for 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, Roe?
Iliescu.
Okay.
Do you want to reset the clock?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on.
And
Ah.
so, as a I'm a proud Broward resident and a former licensed clinical social worker. So I can't thank you enough, Senator Rich and the Commission, for bringing this forward, taking this step to protect some of our most vulnerable, and to affirm that our LGBT residents are perfect just the way they are. As a development director for Equality Florida, a statewide organization, I want to echo what my leader Stratton said, that by taking leadership here, as you have done so often in the past, it's making our job of going into some of the more remote and sometimes less progressive counties a lot easier to do this work. So thank you for your leadership. I want to go on by reading a statement a friend of mine provided to me when he let me know that he himself had experienced conversion therapy as a young college student. He speaks about it with no bitterness, and he minimizes the impact it had on him and his life. But I think you'll feel about a little bit of what he suffered and lost when I read the statement. He says, "I joke that our family could single-handedly have endowed the American Psychiatric Association with what they invested in trying to change me. But I don't wish what I went through on anyone else. My family believed in psychotherapy, so once I expressed to them my orientation, I was sent to therapists and analysts for much of my college time. I spent countless hours on the couch, and when that failed to change me, I was sent to a behavioralist, a PhD. His approach was to have me look at pictures of naked men while putting my fingers down my throat until I vomited. This also failed to change my sexuality, but it did change me. I began to feel like a failure, had very low self-esteem. To the world, I was a golden boy. I was a state champion athlete at an Ivy League school and went on to be a professor there." Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
He went on to thank you for taking this issue up as well.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Alejandro Acosta. Oh, thank you, Alexandra. Next one is Lisa Rask, okay, followed by Rachel Needle and then Michael Rayner.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for taking up this issue. I do want to echo that this is life and death in some instances, and this does affect our youth. However, it comes from a different angle. One of the things disregarded here is instances in the transgender, that 80% of transgenders actually go back to their prior identity once they reach adulthood. And I have a few statistics to read, a few things from journal articles, one being that Dr. Michelle Cretella, who is actually the president of the American College of Pediatrics, has said that transgenderism can be considered a psychological disorder, and this is actually supported by PubMed articles showing that there's differences in cerebral tissues in the brain of transgenders. And this is not to discredit transgenderism as a whole, but it's to show that there are instances of youth. If you research this on the internet, you'll find very quickly that there's a large camp of youth who go through transgender regret or sex change regret. And unfortunately, the language of this ordinance is so broad that any youth going in who's already gone through hormone replacement therapy and then seeks to go back to their former state would be denied that treatment, that option, or just that discussion of saying, you know, I'm questioning this and I think I want to go back to my original gender. Indeed, 20%, there was a 20% increase of gender confirmation operations in 2016. That means people who had undergone transgender operations or sex changes decided to go back to their biological gender. And I just want to leave you with the fact that there's a larger incidence of suicide in transgenders after the sex changes. In 2013, a Belgian man who had found complete dissatisfaction in this accepted euthanasia as his last choice. And so I'd just like to say, I know my time is up. Thank you for your time. But I hope that you realize that you could be doing a disservice to up to 40% of confused transgender youth and ending it up in suicide for them if you use this broad language in this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Rachel Needle, followed by Michael Rayner.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Dr. Rachel Needle. I'm a licensed psychologist and a certified sex therapist, and I train people around the world in this specialization. The practice of conversion therapy is based on two false premises. First, it's based on the falsehood that being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender is a mental disorder or defect that needs to be cured. Secondly, it's based on the presumption that being LGBTQIA is something that can actually be changed through therapy. Sexual orientation and gender identity are not mental disorders or defects, so any technique claiming to cure, suppress, or change that is inherently invalid. Research has found that efforts in so-called therapies aimed at changing one's sexual orientation or gender identity can lead to a number of mental health issues in minors, including shame, guilt, depression, anger, betrayal, self-hatred, withdrawal, substance abuse, blame towards parents, high-risk behaviors, confusion, harm, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation. Attempting to change one's sexual orientation and gender identity can have a devastating impact on a minor. These change efforts are guided by people's biases and judgments, and these biases can negatively affect the mental health of LGBTQIA youth. Many LGBTQ youth in our society still grow up believing there's something wrong with them. Passage of this ordinance sends a powerful message. There's nothing wrong with you, your sexual orientation, or your gender identity. Some of the research that's been stated is highly misrepresented. Dr. Lisa Diamond is the expert and researcher on sexual fluidity, which was and does not like when her research is misrepresented. I know her personally. Sexual fluidity just means that sexual attractions can sometimes be added. We've never seen them being taken away, and that you cannot effortlessly mold someone's sexual orientation. In addition, heard somebody mention something about trauma. Being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender is not a result of trauma in childhood and is not a result of childhood sexual abuse. Opponents have mentioned that that is a cause of being gay. While estimates of child sexual abuse vary, understandably so, some people are not comfortable admitting that or coming forward about it, they range between 17 and 25%, and some studies even suggest higher. Yet the portion of American adults identifying as LGBTQIA is about 4%. So the claim doesn't fit. And as a researcher, the first thing that I'm taught is that correlation does not equal causation. So
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Rayner.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Michael Rayner. I serve as the Vice Chair of the Broward County Human Rights Board. However, today I speak as an individual. You know, it took us for a year to get this item through the county's Human Rights Board, and we looked at a host of different issues to make sure that we were addressing a policy that really belonged here in Broward County to recommend to the County Commission. I'm so excited that 8 of you are co-sponsors of this item, and conversations I've had with Commissioner Lamarca is in support. And it really just goes to show that this isn't a partisan issue. It's one that we understand that this is an issue to protect all youth and to value all people here in Broward County. It's unfortunately that we don't have that same leadership at the state level to ensure that the legislation to ban this practice at the state level would have gone through. We don't have the courage in Tallahassee, sadly. But this is not up here a time for political speeches. This is a time where the Broward County Commission has recognized that this is an unethical, harmful practice on youth. I am a social worker. I am not a clinical social worker. But I do want to address that, Oakland Park City Commissioner Matt Sparks was unfortunate. He could not be here today. But he himself, as a youth, was told. So when we hear that this is a voluntary thing that youth can go into for counseling, to denounce and pray away their being gay and go through therapy for this, it's a crock of you-know-what. And I say that because in this case, Matt Sparks was told by his father, you need to go see a counselor and so we can deal away and counsel away your being gay. Or you don't have a home or a family to come back to. These are youth that are given an ultimatum to be cast aside. For therapists to stand here and call that as voluntary is preposterous and an outright lie. These are youth who are marginalized by threats from their family that are not being able to use counseling as it is to be intended. Thank you. What I would like to say is, as a member of the county's Human Rights Board, unfortunately, we are not given additional time to kind of talk about what we did as a review in that process. If any of the commission would like me to respond to any of the concerns you've received, on behalf of claims from the Liberty Council with regard to the ACLU, I'm happy to respond to, as well as any of the discussions we had during that review process of the Human Rights Board. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I realize you're short on time. I want to thank the Commission.
Thank you. And I think we would always welcome a report at any time from the board, from your to kind of give us an idea and clarify some of those reports.
And I think we could come up maybe going forward, as separate from this, a system-wide process, how boards can actually do that in a more effective way.
I agree.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you so much. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I first have Vice Mayor Bogan.
We're going to do it now?
Yes. Well, let me ask this. Would you all rather break for lunch, or you want to finish this now? Finish this now? Okay. Vice Mayor Bogan.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
Followed by Commissioner Rich.
First of all, I am proud to be a co-sponsor of this ordinance, and I am outraged by even the few comments that came before us today by Dr. Otto and Shannon Otto and Pastor Diaz, because it's clearly that certain people in our community who are claiming to provide therapy really don't know what they're doing. Dr. Otto said he's putting us on notice about a federal lawsuit, and are we wanting to defend a federal lawsuit? And my answer is absolutely yes, because in August of 2013, the Ninth Circuit U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld California's law. In May of 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court let stand the decision of the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Jersey's law. And in 2015, here's the kicker, the jury in that case found a conversion therapy provider, listen to that therapist who came before us, found a therapy provider liable for consumer fraud and ordered the provider to pay the plaintiffs for refunds and damages. Maybe the therapist should wonder about lawsuits coming at them. Let's talk about what the American Medical Association is quoted saying, that the use of conversion therapy that is based upon assumptions that homosexuality per se is a mental disorder should be changed. That is not a proper form of therapy. The American Psychiatric Association states there's no published scientific evidence supporting treatment to change one's sexual orientation. The American Psychological Association opposes portrayals of sexual minority youths and adults as mentally ill due to their sexual orientation, says there's insufficient evidence to support the use of intervention. The National Association of Social Workers go on and on about a variety of national organizations who oppose conversion therapy. Even the senior advisor to the President of the United States a few years ago stated the overwhelming scientific evidence demonstrates that conversion therapy, especially when it's practiced on young people, is neither medically nor ethically appropriate and can cause substantial harm. I think we need to apologize that this has not been enacted many years and decades earlier. I am proud, as I said before, to support this, and we'll do anything we can to fight any challenge to that. Thank you.
Commissioner Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank many of the people who came here today to share their personal stories. I think it's very important for people to hear, especially some of the people who have actually involuntarily experienced conversion, attempts at conversion therapy. I want to just say this is something that is important to, I think, to all of my commissioners, and I am so proud to be on this commission because Michael Rayner is right. After 12 years in Tallahassee and working on the gay adoption bill, 7 years there, which had to come to us through the courts, we unfortunately don't have the opportunity to do what we're doing here up there right now. And I think it's important that we are now branching out to counties. Palm Beach County passed theirs on the 19th of December after many, many cities, municipalities had passed them, and we have obviously our own municipalities who have passed their ordinances, but it's important to expand out. much, much further. And I'm glad that Florida is a leader in that opportunity. And I do want to say there were many comments, or a few comments made about, the bill's too broad, whatever. I want to thank our county staff, our county attorney, Drew Myers, and his staff for working hard because, I'm a person that believes in freedom of speech. I believe in First Amendment rights, and so I wanted us to have an ordinance that would respect that, but above all else, to care about the vulnerable youth in our communities. And I appreciate the our Human Rights Board for all of their work. And in addition, I just did want to mention Rand Hawk, who has been a champion up in Palm Beach County. So together, I feel we're making great progress. But in this county, it is clear that we really do value people. We protect people. I remember the resolution we passed on immigration, and it talks about us being an inclusive, welcoming community. And this is an example of how we do this and how we are welcoming in Broward County. So I just want to thank all of my colleagues for their support of this, and look forward to its passage. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sharif, followed by Commissioner Udine, followed by Commissioner LaMarca.
We'll need to extend again?
We do. Yes. I have a motion for an extension.
Second.
Have a
Of
second.
how much?
All those, what's that?
How much do you want?
50
To the end. Right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Thank you very much. You never lose it. You never lose it. It just comes like that. Any opposed? Okay. Well, we're extended. All right.
Kind of like when you were sitting over here.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner
I lost my train.
I know.
Thank you, Councilor
Bring
Bogan.
it back. Bring it back.
Thank you, Councilor Bogan, for that.
You got it.
I mean, that was just an amazing, I lost my train of thought. But thank you, Councilor Bogan, for the elaboration in terms of how many people do not support conversion therapy. For many, many years, this was thought of a corrective process for those who have been diagnosed as having some disorder because of their sexuality. And I think that it's about time that we did take a stand to make sure that everybody in our community know that we are supportive of our LGBTQI community, and that this is just something that is archaic and barbaric, and it needs to be stopped. And so at this time, or at the appropriate time, Mayor, I would be in support of seconding this item. I know that Commissioner Bogan said he would make the motion, but I'd second that motion, and hopefully we can get unanimous support. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Udine.
Thank you, Mayor. I, too, am going to support this item. I try to do what I think is right up here on the votes that I take. I don't pretend to be an expert on anything when I come up here, but I just happen to think that this type of conversion therapy is dangerous to our youth. And just as if I saw a minor child doing something that was dangerous, I would try and stop that child. I think that's my duty here as an elected official in this capacity. So, I just think love is love. We need to be accepting of the way people are. And, we got bigger fish to fry in this world than who somebody wants to be in love with.
Thank you. Commissioner LaMarca.
How do you follow bigger fish to fry? If I might, Mr. County Attorney, Mr. Myers, what do you have any way of identifying what our legal exposure is? We all got the same emails with regard to, whether it came through the Liberty Council or a progressive organization. I got a letter from the ACLU, and I just need you to make me feel comfortable about the legal aspects of it.
As was mentioned by Vice Mayor Bogan, this has been challenged twice by the Ninth Circuit and by the Third Circuit, and the conversion therapy ban was upheld in both instances. We are, however, in the 11th Federal Circuit, And we've analyzed this issue very carefully. It's not risk-free litigation, but we are aware of the potential challenges, and we think that we do have substantial defenses to them. I'm sorry I can't be more specific. I probably could be a little more specific, but given that there's litigation pending against the city of Tampa and also litigation potentially or threatened against Palm Beach County, and I guess the letter and some statements made today could also be alerting us to the fact that there could be litigation filed against us. I would just say that I think the board does have the discretion to enact this, and that we've done the best job we can in making sure that it's narrowly tailored and that it clearly articulates the very, very substantial and compelling interests of the board in adopting something like this.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. Does this ordinance in any way restrict adults or anyone, anybody above a minor age or any minor person's parents from doing the same, having these conversations and whatnot outside of a professional therapist?
No.
Okay, so people who were concerned for their religious beliefs, their ideology, whatever it might be, their parents can, if that is within that family, that those parents can still teach their kids however they want to teach them.
Yes, as can individuals in a pastoral context. This actually applies to licensed therapists in that context, and it's limited to minors.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'm not going to say who, but folks, there's a person that is very involved in this commission that has a gay child, and I've never seen a more loving home or two more loving parents, and I have a hard time with this. But let me just start on a couple things. Number one, Pastor, was it Rutledge Tipton?
Reverend Tipton, yes, sir.
Reverend, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
With regard to a couple of the speakers today, I don't know the gentleman who's with the Republican Executive Committee because unfortunately, I'm not a committee member anymore. I might be after January 22nd if they get their act together. But I appreciate your comment. I appreciate your comments. Mr. Rayner, I always appreciate your efforts to stand up there and say that you're not going to be political. I just don't think it's in your DNA, my friend. Now, Mr. Evans, on the other hand, can get up and give the same speech, and he's one of those people I wouldn't know what the other hat is. But that's not a negative. It's just who you are. You're both valued member of this community, but and friends. But you know what? One of the things that when I see these issues, don't just say social issues, come to the Broward County Commission. One of my concerns, and I have a very much on the other side of the aisle progressive friend of mine that would say to me, what the hell is wrong with you guys? You can't stay in your lanes down there at the county commission. Isn't your lane just to make sure that the roads are in good shape, that our resources, our libraries, our human services, and all that? And I said, you know what? We have a lot of things that come to us, but nonetheless, we deal with them when they're brought by a member of this board or by the community. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean it's important, but it does sometimes seem that we get out of our lane a bit. I did hear. I have to comment. This is probably just to make myself feel a little bit better. But I kept hearing about everyone being welcoming and everybody saying how much a welcoming community is. I'm just going to tell you, try being a Republican in Broward County who supports his gay Republican friends. You're not welcome on one side or the other. I got to be honest with you. But now I'm going to have to catch up with my friend there from the REC, and we'll compare notes. But listen, I'm supportive of this. I was asked to be a sponsor. This, as much as I want to say this with the most respect possible, because I think everybody understands my position on a lot of these issues. It's just not in the priority list of my wheelhouse. Economic development, making sure everyone has a job and a roof over the head is my thing, and transportation infrastructure. But it is here, and I'm going to support it. It didn't rise to the level for me to say, well, I really need to be a sponsor of this. So it doesn't mean I'm not supportive of it, but from a standpoint of something that I would recommend, and sometimes whether it's whether it is some of the social issues we deal with or some of the labor organizations. And this isn't to Michael, because he does reach out and try to make sure that I'm informed and have a meeting. But sometimes folks don't call me because they figure, hey, we got 8. What the hell do we need him for? And I would encourage you to make sure you continue to reach out to folks and don't make assumptions based on someone's political party, because I look to get not only to support all parts of my district, and I think to the point of what Commissioner Udine said, I have these conversations with folks on maybe the ideological level, and they say, how can you support this or that? And I said, listen, I was elected in Broward County the first time by the entire city. The entire city of Wilton Manors is in my district, half of Oakland Park. We redistricted. Wilton Manors is not in my district anymore, but I have a significant population of people who these issues are very, very important to in my district. So while I may have my own beliefs as a human being, as a Roman Catholic maybe, that's not my job up here to get on a soapbox and tell you about what I think. My job up here is to make sure that I represent the constituency that I represent to the best that I can on issues when they come up. So I'm going to leave you with this. We're talked about a very serious issue of conversion, and I might as well tell you that since I've been on the county commission, there's been a lot of people trying to convert me, but I'm going to continue to be the kind of Republican that I believe that my values stand for, and I think I'm going to start a new group with at least one person here, and we'll go from there. But listen, you have my support. Don't take it the wrong way if I'm not sponsoring, but you have my support. And as Commissioner Udine said, we have a lot of issues, whether they're natural disasters and things that everyone needs support and help from. So as much as this is important, we need to get on to the other things. So I'm going to support it.
Commissioner Holness, then Commissioner Rich, then Commissioner Sharif.
Well, Commissioner LaMarca, I've always welcomed you wherever I am. It's great to have a good Republican around. And let me thank everyone for your participation. This is the democratic process that's at work. We listen to all sides. We study the issue. We make a determination as to what's in the best interest of the people we serve. And this is in the best interest of our community. So I'm voting for it. A lot have already been said. I don't need to repeat much, but you can count the votes. The votes are here for this.
Commissioner Ryan, you haven't had a chance to speak yet. I'll give you a chance to speak. I know.
I was hardened to see and to hear that we have the support of our Republican colleague, and I will note that I suppose, Commissioner LaMarca, you have been in political conversion therapy for 5 years that I've been up here, and it's a work in progress. You're doing quite well. So, we pride ourselves on speaking as the leaders of a diverse community. It's in our statement of goals. It's something that I believe we have practiced in many of the policy decisions that we make here. But I kind of go back to, what is a whole person? And they, what is it? Is it in the Bible that it said that man does not live on bread alone? There is much more to life. And in the Declaration of Independence, it's the pursuit of happiness. And how can such a basic, unalienable right be denied? So it's very clear to me that this is good policy. It's consistent with what we have done here in the 5 years that I've been on this commission, and I'm proud to support this act.
Commissioner Sharif.
Thank you, Tim. That was very presidential. He sounds like Lincoln. This is a democratic process. I agree. And because we are good Democrats, we never see our colleague as a Republican. At least I don't. I just see him as good old Commissioner LaMarca. But I was just wanting to comment on something that you said about Tallahassee. Somebody from Tallahassee saying we should stay in our lane.
No, this was a dance instructor from Broward County.
Oh. Oh, I was going to say, they're always in our lane, taking our money and preempting us. So anyway, I just don't think that this is something that we need to do in terms of our community. And I wanted to second the motion, so
Well,
can we
let's,
go ahead
I'm
and
going to
do
let
that?
Commissioner Rich acknowledge you, and if you'd like to make the motion.
Okay, yes. And I just did want to say one thing. I have to say one thing to you, Commissioner LaMarca. You know, this didn't come to you just lately. I remember being in the Gay Pride Parade one year when I was in the Senate, and you were walking right along my car the whole time. Yeah. Yes, Michael Rayner. Michael Rayner was in charge. Okay. So I would like to have the honor of making this motion. I do want to tell you that I spoke to Howard Simon last night. Since ACLU has come up several times, I did call him because there had been some sheet out about ACLU not supporting, and he said that at this point, neither the national organization nor Florida ACLU has taken a position on this issue. They're working on it right now. Obviously, California was involved in their state, but he also said that the person in Rhode Island who put out some remarks was a blogger who belonged to ACLU, but said exactly his words, his view should not be construed to be that of the ACLU. Don't let one person foment and misrepresent the views of the organization. So I just felt it was important to put that out here. And with that, I make the motion.
We have a motion.
To pass this ordinance.
We have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Very good. All right. And with that, we're going to bring